Hello, everybody. Ben Rogers here, the Raptors Digest. Riker, we've been talking to a lot of players this offseason, and the player, one of our top tier guys that we rarely ever talk about is DeLon Wright.
Yep.
Integral member of the bench mob, going into his fourth season with the Toronto Raptors this year, and, he's been a great player for this team.
Yeah, well, he's going to lead us into the same predicament that we had with Fred VanVleet, in that we're not going to know what his market value is. We're going to assume that there's likely going to be teams give him more money than we're going to have available to give him. We're going to need to decide whether or not he has the potential to become a starting unit player. There's a lot of different pieces. Thankfully, we have the season to see if he fits into rotation now that we have Kawhi Leonard. We also have the whole Kawhi Leonard issue to see if we're going to get him back or not. So there's going to be a lot of moving parts, but he certainly is a guy that's been developing. He's very athletic, very long, and he's shown great flashes. We'll get into his stats in a minute, but what are your first thoughts on DeLon Wright? Just anything.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned it. DeLon Wright, this season, it's after this summer, he's a restricted free agent, so his contract is up, and it's going to be interesting to see, what role he has this year. If he takes a step up, because he's the type of guy, if he develops that more consistent three-point shot, which start to really come along at the end of the season, he's so skilled, long, and just he has all the talent, and defensively, he's a guy that you could really see being a starting point guard in the NBA. Now I know. He's looked at, because he's only going into his fourth year. He is an older young guy, so to speak. He's 26. He's older than Jonas, but I don't know. He just keeps developing and improving every year. It's going to be interesting to see what we do with him.
Wasn't that so crazy that DeLon Wright is older than Jonas Valanciunas? I mean, like you said, he looks as though he's got a baby face. He's only been on the team for it seems like Jonas has been on the team for centuries. And yet DeLon Wright's a bit older. Now I'll return now though to your comment though. It could be a starting point guard. Now let's just look at his stats first. So last season, he's been developing. Obviously, he came off that bench role, played 69 games. He's averaging 8 points per game, half a block, a steal, 3 assists, 3 rebounds. Essentially, I've rounded up a little bit for those numbers, but over 50% from the two. Right, so his effective field goal percentage, his 3-point percentage was not amazing. 36%, but he's shooting over 50% as a point guard, which means he's taking smart shots, which, I mean, if you have a player like, I don't have a direct comparison, but if you have somebody oftentimes as a point guard, they're the guys that's, taking sort of the wild shots at the end of a possession because you want them in the pick and roll situation, right? So they have to take those hard shots. And maybe we're not putting him into positions where he's having to take those shots super contested, but it's really promising when you have a guy at the one position that's consistent like that.
Yeah, most definitely. The thing about DeLon Wright is you never really ask upon DeLon Wright, or the Raptors haven't at least, to do anything crazy, right? He's always just a solid guy, and he doesn't bring up the crazy storylines either, right? The guys that he's kind of competing for minutes with, Fred VanVleet last season stormed onto the scene, was the captain of the bench mob, really just undrafted, took the league by storm, right? And obviously he got his contract this summer. And the other guy that he's also fighting for minutes with is Norman Powell, who, 2 years ago it seemed every playoffs he'd be saving the Toronto Raptors, got the nickname Norm God, people were begging for him to get a big contract and become our, starting two guard, or starting small forward, next to DeMar. He gets that position and then falls completely off the map. So DeLon Wright really has just been, steady Freddy. He's earned the nickname as a steady guy, but DeLon's just been, I'd argue, is almost more solid, more just under the radar.
Well, you said that all last season, and I would always try to argue with you too, but you always argued that DeLon had more potential. If he was to improve his mid-range jump shot, then you said that DeLon Wright had more upside, besides his age.
And three.
Besides his range, because you said that he has less IQ, but he plays with more pace, he's more athletic, he's maybe a better defender. So you've always seen the upside in DeLon. What I think is that if we have a season that Norman Powell continues to, falter and continues to prove that he's not worth his contract, and we buy him out, then I would almost see a situation. Of course, this is with no knowledge of what's to happen now in this upcoming season, but let's just say all other factors are held constant, all right? And we just look at Norman Powell and DeLon Wright, and let's say that Kawhi stays. Let's say that every single other person on the team stays, or we just forget about the starting lineup in general, right? I would almost see a Fred and DeLon working as a tandem. If we paid DeLon for maybe even just a short 1-2 year contract to keep that bench mob together, and then play Fred at the start, the backup 1, and DeLon at the backup 2, that lineup to me is probably the best productivity that you can get.
Yeah, no, you mentioned, and you said all throughout the season, I've been very high on DeLon Wright, maybe higher than others, especially because he is an older guy. But potential for DeLon Wright, he's 6'5", and obviously Fred VanVleet's more skilled, and I'm a huge fan of Fred as well. Don't get me wrong, I think Fred's going to be phenomenal. But just with his size and his defensive potential and his athleticism and just his almost flow to the game, it's just mesmerizing to watch DeLon Wright. So I really want to see DeLon with a confident jump shot. Confident, because he developed the set shot, which is good, but the reason what sets Fred apart from DeLon right now is he can just be in a tight handle, and be able to pull up from 3 without hesitation, right? DeLon doesn't really have that in his game yet. He can hit the set ones, but you wouldn't really consider him a 3-point shooter.
If you look at technique, obviously Fred has better mechanics, so it's easier for him to do a pull up. But no, I definitely agree. I mean, you can obviously improve your shot if you practice enough, and I assume that that's probably what the coaching staff is going to have him doing. Also, he's getting that experience from the Drew League, and I think there's one other league that DeLon plays in over the summer, so he's getting those reps
Crown
up.
League.
What do you expect though? Because obviously there's no way of knowing what's going to happen in the Nick Nurse rotations in this upcoming season. You've said a bunch of times that he says he's willing to try literally everything to switch up every matchup. Do you see DeLon ultimately settling into a starting position at the end of the season, or do you think that he'd be more valuable coming off the bench?
I don't see the potential for DeLon starting at the end of the year. Right, obviously,
in the 2
I think
spot.
He's going to get his shot.
Let's say in the 2 spot.
At the 2? Yeah. He definitely, because no one's starting over Lowry. Lowry and Kawhi are the 2 locks for the starting unit. Yeah. But, I don't know. I think, see, the thing about DeLon, I don't know if he has that just crazy upside that Norman Powell has shown. Right? Because Norman Powell has been really bad at times, but he's also been really good. So, I think because obviously Danny Green kind of has the stranglehold on it right now. But if you were to compare DeLon and Norm for the second best shot at starting at the 2 position, I'd put, just because of unpredictability with Norm, I think he might have a better shot at sliding in. And, obviously we want more 3-point shooting in the starting lineup surrounded by Kawhi and all that. Yeah. So I see DeLon not falling out of the rotation, almost being in the same sort of place.
So you could see if Norm. You're telling me if you think Norm becomes a better player this season, right? If he becomes the player that he was for one small stretch 2 seasons ago, that you could see DeLon becoming the new Norman Powell and losing his position in the rotation.
See, I think even if Norm becomes strong, I think DeLon's not going to lose the minutes.
But I don't like that. I don't like that. So, defend this point here. Do you agree with me that I think we need to have an 8-man rotation going to playoffs? Because if Norm improves and you keep DeLon at the same minutes in the rotation, then now you're playing an 11-man system or a 10-man system. It's not cohesive to having only 8 people, because now you have Fred's getting minutes. If Norm gets minutes, now you have DeLon. You probably have CJ in the mix. You have a lot of guards coming out.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's gonna, obviously the Norm thing's unpredictable, so we'll just leave him aside. All right. Obviously, I think 2 of these guys are going to be in the rotation next season, but I want to throw this question at you: who would you rather see get more minutes next year? Not necessarily start, get more minutes. Danny Green or DeLon Wright?
Yeah, that's a point I wanted to bring up as well. And to me, DeLon Wright is perfect at the bench position, playing against bench players in the NBA. If I really, really consider, if we put DeLon Wright in as a starter, putting him against defending specifically defending against two guards, starting two guards in the NBA, I don't think that he has the size of the defensive capability. I know that he's long, and I know that he was good last season. I just really don't see that matchup being as solid as if Danny Green was guarding the starting shooting guard. Now, maybe Danny Green's age will start catching up to him, or maybe he'll become slower. Maybe DeLon will improve over his athleticism over this offseason, but I would tend to think that Danny Green, I would have more confidence in him defending the two position as a starter.
As a starter?
Yeah.
Okay, I agree. I think Danny Green makes a lot more sense as a starter, but who would you want to see get more minutes next year?
Okay. No, okay, just positions aside. Okay, that's true.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it depends on the consistency of that's a good question. It depends on the consistency of Danny Green. I mean, if he's the Danny Green of last season, then I'd rather DeLon, because DeLon has more ability to score and to offer to an offensive rotation. If Danny Green can go back to being the 3-point shooting Danny Green of 2 seasons ago and prior, then he would be more valuable, because now you're giving Kyle Lowry, you're giving Kawhi Leonard, you're giving OG the ability to, if OG improves, I'm not sure, the ability to attack and then dish out, to have somebody who's consistent on the 3-point shooting line, right? Then you're going into more of the Golden State style offense, where you're spacing the floor, right? If you have DeLon, you're not getting that, because he's not going to be consistent enough next season, right? But if you're losing the 3-point shooting from Danny Green, then he's not offering the same overall ability that DeLon Wright is.
Yeah, see that's what I'm saying. And to bring up last season with Danny Green, he also played last year with a torn groin, which wasn't diagnosed. So I expect him to be better this year, kind of revert back to his old ways. He's only 31 years old. I think he'll be fine. But yeah, because I think Danny Green makes more sense with the starting unit being more of a veteran, being more, you said it, 3-point shooting consistency, and a bit bigger, being able to guard the two and stuff.
Yeah,
but DeLon Wright is a better slasher. Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. DeLon Wright is arguably a better player. He can dribble, he can slash better, he can attack, he can create. He's smaller than Danny Green, but I'd argue he's just as good at guarding 1s and 2s as him. Maybe that might be a hot take, but DeLon is a very good defender and getting in passing lanes. So we have so many just solid guards and wings and everything. Yeah. I'm really excited to see who's going to get minutes, who's going to get what next season.
Yep. Don't sleep on DeLon.
Definitely don't sleep on DeLon. Let us know what you guys think of DeLon Wright. He's the guy that kind of gets lost in the shuffle, right? Will he have a future with the Toronto Raptors? Is this going to be a breakout season for him? Will he start? Will he get lost in the shuffle? There's so many scenarios that can happen. Let us know in the comment section below. Check out the Twitter, the Instagram, all that cool stuff. Thanks for listening.
Cheers.